see the word Esper in front of the word Stoneblade when you tune into SCG Live, but not in this case. He is on the traditional blue-white plan.
Yeah, he's straight blue-white. He's got Stoneforge Mystic. He's got Snapcaster Mage. Got Vendilion Click, some traditional creatures there. Your normal spells, Swords of Plowshares, Brainstorm, Force Will, all that good stuff. Don't forget about Jace and the equipment you're going to search for. And True Name Nemesis, which is a card I think we expect to see moving forward, especially a lot in DC. And one card that's going to make the old Death Shadow look pretty bad. That's Numerfolk.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty awkward to go down to any low life total when there's an unblockable 3-power clock.
Uneverythingable.
Uneverythingable.
Yeah.
Protection from everything, as Progenitus likes to say. We have Timothy Thomason, who is on the play. He played a Tundra into Wyatt Archer, who played a turn 1 Delver Secrets off of Underground Sea. And then he played an end-of-turn Brainstorm.
Now, if you're Thomason, you're probably thinking that you're up against maybe Grixis Delver or something of nature when there's an Underground Sea into a Delver Secrets, potentially Bug Delver or Team America, as people like to call it. But that's not the case. It is a much different brew here that Archer is playing. So we'll see if Thomason maybe was noticing what he was playing around in the early rounds of the tournament. Maybe he sat next to Wyatt Archer over the course of the day. Not quite sure, as Thomason's going to search out another Tundra here with a Polluted Delta.
I think that the secret is going to be out pretty soon here as we see Stoneforge Mystic resolve. If this doesn't get countered, it is likely going to be snuffed out.
Okay, sure.
And so cards like that are less likely to be played, and I think that he will know what's going on at that point, if he has any idea of some of the lesser-known decks in the format. So Timothy is going to search his deck. He has the traditional Batterskull as well as Umezawa's Jita. He also has a main deck Sword of Fire and Ice that he has access to if he wants it. He is, of course, going to just get the Batterskull, 4/4 lifelink, vigilance, equipment, living weapon. And then he's going to pass the turn. Wyatt's going to untap, and with the Delver trigger on the stack, play a Brainstorm of his own to be able to set up Insectile Aberration.
He wants to make sure that it's going to flip, so 1, 2, and 3. You saw Timothy give pause there a little bit. He does have a Force Will in his hand, I think a blue card as well, so considering Force Willing a Brainstorm, but got to hold it back, pick his spot a little bit better, which you can probably do.
Yep. Wyatt has to decide how much secret he wants to give away here. He has a Watery Grave that he's going to put back, as well as it looks like a Thoughtseize? Nope, a Snuff Out.
Okay.
So I think that Timothy might know what's happening a little bit. It's still tough to put someone on a Death Shadow deck.
Yeah.
But these are the last 2 undefeated players in the tournament. They likely have been sat next to each other for at least the last 2 or 3 rounds, so they might just know what everybody's on.
Yeah, and the thing is, Snuff Out is a card that does see play in 2 different decks. It sees play in Team America-esque decks, and it sees play in Blue-Black Death Shadow decks. So, again, we will see if Thomason can figure out exactly what he's up against, as Wasteland's going to come into play, Archer going to come across for 3 in the air. See if he's going to fire out that Snuff Off, too.
Yeah, the Wasteland, the Wasteland should tell Timothy that Wyatt is not on the Grixis Delver deck, for example. As we see Snuff Out is going to try and take out the Stoneforge Mystic. Timothy's decided to fight over this so that he can try and sneak out that Batterskull as quickly as possible. There's Snuff Out. Mercadian Mask's common originally. Has since been reprinted in, I believe, a dual deck of some kind.
I believe that's true.
It was Garrick Liliana.
Yeah, with some new
art.
Picture, yeah.
Wasteland is going to take out one of the 2 Tundras over on Timothy's side of the board. Wasteland not as good against Timothy, obviously, because he is not 3 colors, not 4 colors, 2 colors.
2 colors.
Very unusual to see a Stoneblade deck on just 2 colors, but with the popularity of Wasteland the last couple weeks, as well as the popularity of Blood Moon, I'm a big fan.
So I've been told.
Yeah. Having the 5 basics, I gotta say, fetch land for a basic island is pretty much the best play you can make in Legacy. As we see,
that's a powerful feeling.
It is. Swords to Plowshares off of a Caracas is going to take out the Insectile Aberration.
What accent was that on the Caracas? Yeah, what accent was that? Okay.
It's wherever Caracas is.
Okay, gotcha.
I was feeling a little, that was my Latin flavor, I guess. It was Italian.
Let's spice it up. Morocco is what we're being
informed. The Moroccan Caracas.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Watery Grave coming into play, untapped here for Archer.
And so the reason, of course, to run Watery Grave in Legacy is there are very few reasons. I've seen it in a couple lists. This one, of course, you want to take advantage of the paying 2 life effect when you have the Death Shadows in your deck. But you've also seen it occasionally. There was about 6 months period where a blue-black High Tide deck was popular because you could also run Bubbling Muck, which was a color-shifted High Tide.
Yep.
Those are pretty much the only 2 times you'd ever see it, and sometimes you'd see a Stomping Ground in Belcher for, budget reasons.
Yeah.
But not very often, and so the Watery Grave should really spell either confusion or spell out exactly what Wyatt's trying to do for Timothy, depending on how much he's read Star City games in the last 3 years. This is a Insectile Aberration coming in for Wyatt Archer. Timothy drops down to 12. Wyatt is at 16 himself.
Needs to get lower. He's got Dismember in his hand, so he can go a little lower from that, so that's certainly a start.
And there's a Watery Grave. That's going to drop him to 14. Now, he doesn't have to go super low. He can just play like a regular Delver deck, where he just tries to hide behind his normal elimination spells. Play Dazes and Force of Wills and play the tempo game as usual. Although a Batterskull is going to cause real problems for that style of game plan.
And Batterskull does come in here, and you see Thomason drawn a couple more cards. He's going to serve into the red zone.
Wyatt is likely going to deal with one of these creatures here. I'm not sure which one he's going to decide to deal with here. He could save the lifelink damage on Timothy's side of the board, but it looks like he's just going to take all the damage, and here comes another Stoneforge Mystic. This is likely going to surge up the GT and put this game much tougher for Wyatt, as Umezawa's GT, tough for any creature deck to deal with, particularly when your main win condition are Delver of Secrets.
Of course.
And this blue-black deck has less interplay with, it does not run Stifle, so it does not run as much of the tricky stuff. It instead has discard spells, Hymn to Torok and Thoughtseize, neither of which are particularly good. Even if you Thoughtseize away this GT, you're still not dealing with anything on the board. You have a lower life total. You're facing down 6 power. So
you see Archer's life total is now sitting at 9, so we do have our life totals updated here. 16 for Thomason, 9 for Archer, but the big deal here is now he's underneath that cool 13 number. So now Death Shadow's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
So the Death Shadow is going to be able to come down as a 4/4 if he casts it right now. There's also a Dismember in Wyatt's hand.
And he's going to cast.
He's going to cast it to pay 2 life. This will drop him down to 7.
So there goes the token.
And Death Shadow is a 13/13, but would come down as a 6/6 here. The interesting thing is that if you have 2 Death Shadows in play, by the way, and one of them gets Swords to Plowshares, they both die.
Oh, that's sad.
Isn't that annoying?
Yeah, that is sad.
So we see Thoughtseize here revealing Stoneforge Mystic number 3, the GT that we searched for earlier, and Vendilion Click, which will certainly cause problems with the Caracas.
Yes. I think I probably want to take Vendilion Click here, honestly. I mean, GT is fine in this situation. I don't think it's great, though.
Yeah, I think that Vendilion Click, the flash aspect is certainly going to cause a lot of problems for Wyatt, because Timothy can just keep on serving, keep all his mana up. Either play the Vendilion Click or return the Batterskull, depending on what he wants to do. Taking the flash threat, I think, is the correct way to go here.
Well, we'll see what he does decide. Certainly has a decision to make. This is going to be a really big deal. He is going to take the
And even if he takes the click, the GT and the Stoneforge Mystic right now is pretty much just a Squire, but he's only at 5.
Yeah.
So he's still in a little bit of trouble here. This is a defensive Insectile Aberration that's going to be happening alongside the 8/8 Death Shadow. It is a 13/13, but has minus X, minus
You thought it was
X.
going to be defensive. Get in the red zone, big man.
I guess it's not going to be defensive. Here comes Insectile Aberration, dropping Timothy Thomason down into Higetsugu's second right range. Looks like, probably.
See a draw there. Looks like a basic Plains was to draw for Thomason.
Timothy's still in very good shape here, even though he's facing down this 8/8. Although that, I mean, the 8/8's not going to be able to swing freely. It's going to have a Squire standing in front of it for the next 3 turns, and Wyatt's only at 5. Although taking away the flying threat certainly just puts this game. I imagine all of the games for blue-black Death Shadow are this close.
Yes, they are. I mean, that's the kind of the fun part of playing this deck is, you know, you have to play this little game of like balancing your life total and knowing when you can attack and when you can't attack, and you know how low do you want to go and how much can you afford to take. And it's also a difficult game for the opponent too, because you know they think that I can knock you down to 1. But then if I do that, then I'm being attacked for 12, and then, what cards am I shutting off, what cards am I turning on, stuff like that. It's actually this really fun mini game of trying to figure out exactly how much you want to hit him for, because ideally you just want to hit him and kill him in one fell swoop. But, you can't always do that.
Yeah.
So it's a fun little game that you have to play here. As you see, Thomason's going to resolve another Stoneforge Mystic, get a sort of fire and ice.
Yep, and that's all the equipment that are in Timothy's main deck. I think that, Rug Delver is certainly a deck that players love to play on those little margins.
Mm-hmm.
Blue-Black Delver, or Blue-Black Death Shadow, has even thinner margins because you have to play on that razor-thin wire and try and take every little 51% advantage that you can. Wyatt, sitting at 6-0, clearly a talented magician at this particular deck.
Yeah.
We'll see if he's able to finish it off here against the trio of Stoneforge Mystics. And here comes the 8-power Avatar. And a Squire is going to jump in front. After declaring blockers, we're going to vial in. It looked like he vialed in the sword.
The sword, yeah. Doesn't think that he needs the GTA now, which I actually kind of agree with.
Yeah, and the protection from blue is very relevant because of the blocking insectile aberration.
Yep. See if Archer has a follow-up play here or not.
He's going to need a black creature, I think. He's going to need either Tombstalker, which he has 2 copies of, or another Death Shadow.
Well, speak of the devil, and he shall appear, so Tombstalker's here.
Yep, and there is the Tombstalker. He needed that because Timothy had 4 mana, so he could equip the sword, and even if there was an elimination spell, he could re-equip the sword to the other creature.
Yep.
In this case, though, he has diversified blockers. There is Tombstalker. Modern Master's rare. Originally from Future Sight. Has a creature with Delve and a Delver in play.
I see what you did there. You're on your A game today.
I am.
I'm just going to keep letting you go.
I'm
not going to say much.
I try my best, sir. So, Human, Insect, Avatar, Demon are what we have for creature types. Timothy has a 3rd equipment at his disposal in his hand, plus an unknown card, as well as the 2 creatures, the 2 Stoneforge Mystics.
Yeah, and this is the kind of little game that you have to play now as Thomason, because Death Shadow, Archer has proven that he's going to just rumble on over with that thing.
Yeah, Death Shadow at this point in the game is going to be the Abyss, and as soon as it's not the Abyss, it's going to be game over.
Yep.
Tombstalker leans even heavier on that because he can now do it in just 1 swing, whereas before he would have needed 2 swings to be able to take out the full 13.
And there's also the situation now, too, where Delver, insectile aberration, can just fly over and you can just play defense on the ground with your 2 gigantic creatures. Put an attack in, put you to 10. Put an attack in, put you to 7. Kill you with my 2 flyers. That's something that can actually happen now, too, because Tombstalker and Death Shadow play such good defense.
Absolutely, yeah. Timothy's deciding the best way to move forward here. He did get a lot of Stoneforge Mystics, and that's one of the problems that I find whenever I'm playing a Stoneforge Mystic.
You don't like Squire?
Is, the diminishing returns of when you get too many.
Sure.
If you can't brainstorm away the equipment with either brainstorm or Jace's 0 ability to be able to rebuy the effect on that, it gets very awkward very quickly. Although he was going to be able to take very good advantage of this sword until the Tombstalker came down. Here is Jace the Mind Sculptor. That is probably going to be an unsummoning Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah, I think so. Probably just make him pick up that Tombstalker.
Yep, because he can't recast it with the current mana and graveyard available.
This is good money.
So
He also pick that up.
Yep, he is going to bounce the Tombstalker. He's not going to be able to attack this turn, though, because he needs to equip the sword to get in for that last 5 damage. Wyatt has 3 cards in hand. Trying to spot what they are. Looks like one of them's a land, one's a Tombstalker, of course.
One is a mystery.
Yes.
I'm interested to see if Wyatt's going to keep being aggressive on this turn. Is he going to... Oh, wow. Okay, so that's going to come into the red zone.
He's thinking about attacking with both of them.
Well, actually, I think what he does, he just kills Jace. Yeah, so he just uses Insect Aberration to kill Jace. So I see it. Okay, so that's going to take care of that. Again, Thomason just has GTA left in his hand, and now Archer's going to play a Baleful Strix.
And that is not going to be as good as Wyatt really wants it to be because the sword mitigates the factor. Baleful Strix is very good at just gumming up the board, preventing things like Tarmogoyf or big Batterskull-equipped Stoneforge Mystics from ever attacking or ever doing anything other than just gaining 4 life. One of the biggest value cards in the format.
3-mana spell, True Name Nemesis. Uh-oh.
And there we have the big problem.
Yeah, this was the card that I was worried about in this matchup. Now, what do we have here? Here's a brainstorm response. Yeah, this is worth fighting over. See if you can find a Force of Will, because this thing causes a huge problem. It changes the entire dynamic of the game in one fell swoop. If this resolves, Archer, first of all, his Death Shadow is just stone cold dead. Because it can't attack because blocked by True Name Nemesis. And then True Name Nemesis picks up that sword and says, you're dead. Because you can't kill me.
Now, I think that it's possible, this would be awesome, if Wyatt, he doesn't actually have it, but if he had another Commander 2013 card named Toxic Deluge that lets you pay any amount of life.
That card should be in this deck.
That card should definitely
be in this deck.
How good would that be in this situation?
Deluge for 2.
Yeah. Make my Death Shadow bigger? Seems okay.
Yeah.
But as it is, Wyatt doesn't look like he's going to be able to answer this True Name Nemesis. And as we learned from Ari Lax's article, True Name Nemesis is very scary. But without an equipment, you can deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, you can deal with it, you can race it, something like that. But again, this was my big concern in this matchup, because it's like the entire idea behind the deck that Archer's playing is to make a large Death Shadow, and True Name Nemesis completely invalidates that. And Thomason didn't have one, but thankfully his draw step netted him one, and he's got 3 in his main deck and the 4th one in the sideboard. And this is a card that I expect to see a lot of play in Legacy as we move forward. Again, the new product is out and people are trying to, accumulate this card. But DC, I would not be surprised next weekend if that's its breakout weekend.
Yep. And so damage prevention is a big deal, of course, on the defense, but protection does more than just that. Okay. For those of you who are somewhat new to the game, protection is one of the abilities that makes sense in theory. Makes sense when you're thinking about the game as something to do in between Dungeons and Dragons rounds.
Sure.
But when it comes to rules, it's actually very tricky.
Yeah.
So there are 4 individual effects that happen. It's DEBT, if you want to have a sort of mnemonic in your head to remember what it does. It can't be damaged by, can't be enchanted by, can't be blocked by, and can't be targeted by things that it has protection from. And so it can't be dealt damage by creatures, because that's something you control.
Yeah.
And so it basically becomes a Progenitus in these one-on-one matchups. Now, of course, in multiplayer, which Commander is built for, it's slightly worse, but it is incredibly potent in these matchups, especially when you've only got a little bit more to go, because Wyatt dealt himself so much damage, because that's the point of his deck.
Yeah. Thomason kind of shaking his head there after he does win game 1. I think the reason he's doing that is because he's thinking to himself, this card is so dumb.
Yep.
That he was in bad shape until he drew that.
Absolutely.
And he went from in a pretty bad situation where he had to play his Jace to bounce a Tombstalker, and then Delver killed it, and then Death Shadow was ready to go crazy. He went from that to, I can't possibly lose now.
Yep.
So that is the power of that card.
And so we see it in this blue-white Stoneforge deck. Last round we had it in a Merfolk deck that you were covering. We've seen it in sideboards of various other strategies. I think that I saw it in a Rug Delver sideboard.
Yep, we saw it in the main deck of Osa Levidovich's deck that he got 2nd place in the Eternal Legacy weekend finals before losing to Ari Lax, where Ari, as you said, mentioned in his article about how difficult that card was and how it was a nightmare for Death and Taxes to play against.
Yeah, and it's also incredibly difficult for any deck that's trying to be interactive on any level.
Yeah.
Especially, Shardless Bug, I think that it's certainly worth bringing in. One of the answers that I saw for it today out of a Shardless Bug deck was Pernicious Deed.
Yeah, I mean, that's an answer. It's a slow one, but it's definitely an answer. I mean, we could see the Shardless Bug has adapted Golgari Charm in their sideboard, so I could see that coming in just from -1/-1 mode, having access to more of those moving forward, because it is a versatile charm type card.
Now, in Wyatt's sideboard, he does have a very clean answer to True Name Nemesis.
Yeah, I like
if he wants to bring it in, Engineered Plague, naming Merfolk.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? I mean, it's literally 2 cards in Timothy's deck.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
all it is.
I think I'm fine with it, honestly, because that's how good True Name Nemesis is in this matchup. It is the end-all, be-all. Once one of those are in play, and it invalidates the one card that Archer's deck is built around in Death Shadow. You saw how Death Shadow was, again, kind of terrorizing the battlefield, being an 8/8. Thomason was playing that game. Is he going to attack with it? Is he not going to attack with it? If he doesn't attack with it, I can't attack. If he does attack with it, I probably have to block. So, True Name Nemesis just makes all the decisions that Archer has or Thomason has to worry about they don't matter.
If the matchup is all about True Name Nemesis at this point, and as we saw, Game 1 was all about True Name Nemesis.
Yeah.
It was like, I can't win. Oh, I played a True Name Nemesis. Now I can't ever lose.
Yep.
Then the other answer is, I guess he doesn't have a way to get a third.
Yeah, I saw you looking
mana.
at. I saw you
was
looking
trying
at
to get engineered explosives
Yep.
in there, but his opponent's not playing Blood Moon on him, so he can't do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Diabolic Edict. If
Yeah.
you can keep the board clear, he
Gotta
has
be-
one main, one side. That's about it, though.
Yep. It's a very, very difficult card to get off the board. Of course, there are answers that do exist. We mentioned Toxic Deluge, which is a card I think could end up seeing a lot more play strictly because of True Name Nemesis. And it's actually a really cool interaction in Death Shadow's deck, so hopefully we get to see that 1-2 punch get put together here. But yeah, the other options in the sideboard there for Archer just really aren't all that exciting. On Thomason's side, he does have that 4th True Name Nemesis that he is certainly going to board in. 3 Rest in Peace, 2 copies of Meddling Mage, 2 Swan Song, a couple singletons here in Flusterstorm, Path to Exile, Supreme Verdict, Venser, Shaper, Savant, Manriki Gusari to search up for with the Stoneforge Mystic, Detention Sphere, and a Pithing Needle. So a lot of one-ups here that he could or could not sideboard in. I think you can make arguments for most of these cards. The one card that's definitely going to come in is True Name Nemesis, and we'll see where he goes from there.
Yeah, it's not very often that you bring in both Supreme Verdict and True Name Nemesis in the same matchup, but you know what? This might be one of them. Because you just have to deal with 8/8s in some form or fashion. And so Path to Exile, I think, is another very valuable card here. He doesn't really care how much mana Wyatt gets, does Timothy. And so let's see if he can shape this game in much the way he shaped the last one. Delay, 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 delay. Wyatt bringing himself down far enough that the True Name Nemesis can finish the job. Wyatt's going to try and prevent that from happening, although having to deal with that new Merfolk throws a huge wrench in the works in Wyatt's plan. It was working right up until the point that magic card came into play. And so I'm going to be very interested to see if Wyatt changes his plan at all, or if he's just happy and content to do the same game plan without worrying too much about a late game True Name Nemesis. Or of course, early in the game, he can make him discard it with something like Inquisition of Kozilek or Thoughtseize or Hymn to Torok. But late game, it's a much more dangerous proposition when you already have creatures in play to protect it from Diabolic Edict effects, and already have the equipment in play to be able to equip it up.
Yeah. So both players are going to lay out their opening 7. Wyatt Archer on the left. He'll be on your play. Blueback Death Shadow, innovative deck, as you mentioned. Jerry Thompson wrote about that one. Was a big fan of it. We've seen Greg Hatch play that to some success as well as on our Open Series circuit. We'll see if he can find a cool 7 to start with. And there are a lot of cool interactions with this deck. You know, again, Watery Grave, Dazing with Watery Grave, pick it up, replay it, take 2 more.
Yep.
There are some sweet things that you can do.
And Force of Will loses a life too, and that just gives +1/+1 to your Death Shadows.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many ways to pay life in this deck. You have no trouble getting down below 13.
16 right now. Boom.
Yeah. Watery Grave Thoughtseize. There you go. It's
Yeah.
like we're playing Standard 7 years ago.
That's right. Here's Jason the Mind Sculptor, a Brainstormer, Supreme Verdict, a Sword of Fire and Ice to go along with a couple of lands. I think if I am Archer in this situation, I just probably want to nab a Brainstorm, but we'll see.
Yeah, you just leave him with a pretty much unusable 3-mana spell, currently, of course, and Jace Supreme Verdict, which he can't cast with what he has.
Yeah. It just feels like me, like, I don't want to say Brainstorm's the best card in his hand, because, you know, there's a Jace the Mind Sculptor hanging out there, but it's a Brainstorm, and Brainstorms are worth taking.
Yeah, in Legacy, Brainstorms and Ponders and Preordains are part of your mana base.
Yeah.
Basically, at this point, every deck has the fetch land, dual land mana base, and Brainstorms allow you to fix your mana.
Yeah.
Being able to take a mana away from a hand that contains a 3-drop and 2 4-drops is pretty ideal.
And a big reason I want to take Brainstorm here, too, is that Brainstorm gets Thomason closer to True Name Nemesis.
Yes.
And that's one thing I do not want him to be able to do. Additionally, it allows him to protect a True Name Nemesis from a Hymn to Torag or another discard spell. But he does take a Jace, which you could see an argument for because, hey, it's Jace the Mind Sculptor,
That card's
man.
better than all.
Yes.
And it was also very good in that last game, even though all it did was soak up some damage and bounce a Tombstalker.
Yeah, but I bought him time.
Bought him
which
plenty
is what
of
he
time.
needed.
Didn't let him attack in the air with that Tombstalker, as we have an upkeep. Is this an upkeep or a main phase Brainstorm?
I believe this is a main phase Brainstorm.
Just digging for some more lands. As we mentioned earlier, Brainstorm part of the mana base, really. He does find an Underground Sea, so he is going to be able to play another spell this turn, should he so choose. There's Underground Sea and Gitaxian Probe for 2
14.
life. Yep. we're almost to where we can just cast our Death Shadow. And he sees that Timothy has added a Winter Mishra's Factory, which are nice. I like those.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't
You
like
don't
that
like that one?
No.
Why?
It's just okay.
Is it just too much for you?
Well, it's not enough. How about that?
What other kind of Mishra's Factory would you prefer?
Fall.
The autumn ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like the autumn ones. That's my favorite time of year.
Sure.
I like when the leaves and Halloween. I'm a child at heart, Ruben. I am.
So poetic.
Thank you very much. Baleful Strix. Going to draw Archer a card here.
Doesn't look like he has a third land here. He does have Daze, Snuff Out, possibly Force of Will. So he's got plenty of game against whatever Timothy could try to do here. And it looks like he's just going to try and jam this sword. I imagine this will be Dazed. I don't know how much he cares about it. He just doesn't want to deal with it any time in the future.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
getting rid
he's
of
picking
that.
up the Watery Grave. 2 more damage. I love it.
Oh, he did it.
I love it.
So picking up that Watery Grave. 2 more damage, going to go down to 12 should he play it here.
Yeah, start by attacking with the Strix. Make it easy.
Sure. Bring the life totals a little bit closer right before we make them further away again.
So we got to go down to 12. Needs to be careful, too, because something interesting that could happen is Thomason has a Swords of Plowshares in his hand, so he plays Death Shadow, and Swords of Plowshares the Baleful Strix, puts him up to 13, and then bye-bye Death Shadow.
Yeah.
So tread carefully, Mr. Archer.
It looks like Delver of Secrets is going to be one of the things entering the battlefield. As we see, he resolves the Human Wizard. And he's going to pass without playing the Death Shadow. Doesn't want to walk right into that.
That's
play.
good. And you have to assume that, he's sitting at 6-0, so he probably knows that interaction of if I gain a little bit of life, then my creature gets blown out and things like that. So.
He also knows that Timothy has
Supreme Verdict.
Supreme Verdict, so he does, getting 2 for 1 with the Baleful Strix is much better than losing the Delver of Secrets is much better than losing the Death Shadow, because you've already gotten your value out of the Baleful Strix, drawing the card.
Yeah,
so you're
for sure.
really only wrathing away a Delver that hasn't even flipped yet. In this case, though, Jace is going to bounce it, which is a much bigger problem.
Yeah, so Jace's going to bounce that. Strix is going to go over to it. It's going to go down to 1. And if Archer does decide to redeploy that Delver, which is what he's going to do, I wouldn't be surprised if we just see a Supreme Verdict and then a Brainstorm and then let Jace do its thing.
Yep. And here is another, I believe that is an Autumn Mishra's Factory.
That's what I'm talking about.
There you go. He hasn't played it yet.
Still what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. We have 2 Stoneforge Mystics among the top 3 cards that we drew there.
Going to put a couple cards back here.
He used Jace the Mind Sculptor's 0 ability, didn't cast a Brainstorm that turn. So play a fetch land and play Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, this is a gorgeous turn because Brainstorm's already happened. You got the fetch land to make it a great Brainstorm. Board's clear, which means Jace is going to die this turn. And now you can just set up things in the future. You see a Brainstorm in Thomason's hand. He also has a Stoneforge Mystic, as you did mention. He's got a Mishra's Factory to kind of get some damage across. So he's sitting pretty right now.
And it's not like there are any lightning bolts in this non-Rug Delver version. Yep. There's nothing that can really threaten the Jace's last loyalty counter. He can sort of keep it at 1 if he wants to, really.
And he's not going to sacrifice the fetch land. I'm a little bit surprised by that. He draws a Polluted Delta for the turn, so maybe he decides that he wants 6 mana.
Yeah, he just wanted as much mana as he possibly could here.
Time to Brainstorm again with Jace. So 1, 2, and 3. Force of Will among the cards that are drawn here.
I believe there was also a Snapcaster Mage among the cards drawn. That's going to give him another copy of Supreme Verdict should he need it later. He also has, is that a Path to Exile?
I think there's one hanging out in his hand. He does have one in his sideboard, so looks like he brought that in, as he should, against the Death Shadows guy.
Timothy's going to drop to 18. Wait to see if Wyatt has a Stifle. Obviously, he does not in his 75. Timothy doesn't know that, of course. He's going to go get himself a Tundra. He hasn't seen enough Wasteland activity to be really frightened by that. Also, he doesn't really mind if Wyatt Wastelands him at this point in the game. Wasteland is almost certainly going to take out Mishra's Factory anyway, so he can go get the duel regardless. In comes Stoneforge Mystic.
Time to go get the old Batterskull, maybe? Sword of Fire Knight's already in the graveyard.
Yeah,
so there's
it probably just has to be the Batterskull here. He just wants to end the game quickly. Sword is good in this matchup, but I think the Batterskull is still just the best one you can go get in this matchup.
What's the worst equipment you could search for?
In this matchup?
Yeah, just in just general.
Oh, the worst equipment in general you could get?
Worst one, go. Wrong. The answer is Kite Sail.
Kite Sail
That's the answer.
grants evasion. Kite Shield is pretty bad.
All right. Fine. How about a Quarter Shield? Same card.
Same card.
Dismember. Going to take down the Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, that's going to tie up Timothy's mana if he wants to cast that Batter Skull soon. Although he does have access to another Stoneforge Mystic if he just wants to wait and Violet in later. Wyatt is at 8, and he does have a Death Shadow in his hand, so he has access to a 5/5 for 1 mana pretty much whenever he wants.
First things first, time to check for Delver. The answer is no. Or?
Well, he's already checked, so the trigger's happened.
Yeah, the trigger is already resolved. And now, so what he's going to do, trigger resolves. I actually like this. I like this play by Thomason because the trigger resolves and says, I don't want you to draw that card. So now here's a Brainstorm in response. So 1, 2, 3.
It looks like it was another Delver of Secrets. That would be the third one.
Delver's got a lot of work to do, my friend.
Yeah, and Wyatt does have 2 basic lands in his deck. He does have 1 island and 1 swamp. He's been stuck on 2 lands this whole game. He only has 18 in the deck, of course. But he is going to have more going forward. Although, man, Timothy's just slowly but surely putting a sleeper hold on this game with the Jace activations every single turn.
Yep.
Wyatt's still resolving his Brainstorm, and then Path will likely resolve, and then Wyatt's going to go get himself a basic land of some kind. So what's Wyatt's avenue to victory here?
That's the thing that I'm trying to figure out right now, and it seems like it's so hard to find it because Jace is going to basically allow Thomason to find more cards, get closer to True Nemesis, do that sort of thing, Fate Seal, do what Jace does. Batter Skull provides a solid clock and life gain, and he's already down to 8, so only takes 2 hits from Batter Skull or 4 hits from the Factory. He's got a Forceful in his hand, does Thomason, so I'm really interested to see what he can do to get back into this.
I think he just has to throw the Death Shadow onto the board. That's what I think he has to do. I think he just has to apply pressure, and as he does. There it is. And if he's lucky enough for Timothy to not have another answer, then it can kill off the Jace either by it being bounced or by attacking it. Timothy does have the Snapcaster Mage if worst comes to worst, and he wants to Supreme Verdict again with his 6th land.
Yeah, I was going to say he has the land in his hand because he still has that Factory. And I would be perfectly fine just doing that this turn. Something along the lines of, Fate Seal you to control your draw step, Snapcaster Mage, cast a Supreme Verdict, kill everything, and I'm still in the driver's seat. Detention Sphere off the top here from Thomason, giving him another option. But he's going to go with Brainstorm first so he knows what kind of information he's working with.
Yeah, I mean, he can't play around everything. He just has to try and play the game as if Timothy had nothing.
Yeah.
Now, of course, Timothy's gas tank is completely full. So I think that, it's going to be difficult to win from here, but this is the avenue that he has to follow. He has to take the most aggressive line that he can to be able to try and pull this game out. Timothy's still at 18.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of life. He got Timothy down pretty good last time.
Yeah.
And looked in decent shape, and there is
gorgeous
the different art.
Gorgeous.
For Mishra's Factory.
Absolutely beautiful. So is the Supreme Verdict that's being flashed back right now.
Absolutely.
So he's going to clear everything up. He chose to Brainstorm instead of Fate Sealing, so instead of controlling the draw step, he just said, I get 3 cards deeper. I mean, either way, it's just bad news for Archer.
Just keep finding Force of Wills and just set up a big, nice defense. He can eventually win with Jace. He doesn't even need to find the True Name Nemesis.
Yeah.
Or he can eventually win with Mishra's Factories.
Also
really.
true. I mean, it takes 4 hits from those. He's got 2 in play right now. Archer's going to organize some mana. Here comes a Tombstalker. He's going to do some delving here.
Yeah, this is a pretty awkward Tombstalker into a Jace. But, desperate times.
If you've never seen Jace in action before, desperate measures. If you've never seen Jace in action before, this is why it's one of the staples of Legacy and why it was banned in Standard and everything else that this card does. Finds a home in Vintage. This card is just wow.
Yeah, it does
wow,
everything.
Is it good.
It's a win condition. It's a card advantage engine. It protects itself. And it's only 4 mana. And it's blue in Legacy, which is very good for Force of Will.
Has a rap song made about it.
It does.
Yeah. People dress up as it. It's just
Him.
it's too
Him.
much. Oh, excuse me, him. I apologize. I don't want to offend Jace.
Fine.
I don't want to be unsummoned. Detention Sphere here to take down the Tombstalker.
Yep, Detention Sphere is a pretty clean answer to Tombstalker. And is going to allow Jace to Brainstorm once again. I think that he could probably have done some fate sealing by this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. What I honestly think he's doing is, like, he's brainstorming because he just wants to find True Name Nemesis because it just ends the game.
Sure.
Like, he doesn't need True Name Nemesis to win, but at the same time, like, you know, he's just sculpting his hand. He's got double Force of Will. He's got he's an attack here with the Factory. He's got double Force of Will. He's got a bunch of blue cards, so he's just sculpting the perfect hand.
I think that Timothy played the Summer Factory there, and he's got 4 in his deck. What do you think the remaining Factory is?
Guess as good as mine.
I think it's Spring. I would be very disappointed if it wasn't Spring.
Yeah.
So Diabolic Edict, and in response, activate the not attacking factor to be able to get that attack through. And then Snuff Out is going to take out the attacking factory. Wyatt is going to fall to 4 from that.
You see he's checking to make sure. Snuff Out, so Snuff Out can destroy an artifact creature, which it can.
Yep.
And Snuff Force of Will says, you're not killing me, which means you're going to go down. Means it's going to go down to 2 now.
Yeah, that's not a very high life total, although it's not completely unreasonable for Wyatt to be able to kill off both creatures. He does have a ton of elimination spells in his deck, and he also has Wastelands to be able to deal with the factories. But there are 2 of them, so he's going to have to find 2 answers.
Yeah. There's a water. Water Grave comes into play on tap, and that's going to do it.
He can pay that last 2 life if he so chooses, and he's decided the honorable way to go. He has brought dishonor upon Blue-Black Death Shadow.
That's right.
He knows what he must do.
If you're going to kill me, I don't think so. I'll kill myself. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much. Timothy Thomason does win this match.